Once there were 4 children, whose names were Peter, Lucy... Okay. They were Peter, Susan, Edmund and Lucy. This story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway and 2 miles from the nearest post office.
What's so funny?
Because it's 2 miles from the nearest post office, because that's important.
It's very important, Dad.
Yeah.
We're world building.
Well, it is, that's right. Well, that's like, the post office was like the internet back then.
Yeah.
He had no wife, although a man lived with
him.
Dad!
Read it.
He lived in a very large house with a housekeeper called Mrs. Macready and 3 servants. They do not come into the story much.
But we needed to
mention them.
We needed to mention them right here.
That's right.
Yeah.
He himself was a very old man with shaggy white hair which grew over most of his face as well as on his head. And they liked him almost at once.
Because of his hair?
Because of his hair. Because
they were
he was
that man's very hairy. He's very trustworthy.
He was like a hairball on a body.
Is that you, Santa?
Yeah, he was like a giant cotton ball. The first evening when he came out to meet them at the front door, he was so odd-looking that Lucy, who was the youngest, was a little afraid of him. "Feet are no mistake," said Peter. "This is going to be perfectly splendid. That old chap will let us do anything we like. He's so stupid."
Dad, that's not the...
Well, anyway.
"I think he's an old dear," said Susan.
"Oh, come off it," said Edmund, who was tired and pretending not to be tired, which always made him bad-tempered. "Don't go on talking like that."
"Like what?" said Susan. "And anyway, it's time you were in bed."
"Trying to talk like mother," said Edmund. "And who are you to say when I'm to go off to bed?"
"There's sure to be a row if we're heard talking here."
"I tell you, this is the sort of house where no one's going to mind what we do. Wait, they won't hear us. It's about 10 minutes walk from here down to that dining room, and any amount of stairs and passages in between."
"What's that noise?" said Lucy suddenly. It was a far larger house than she had ever been in before, and the thought of all those long passages and rows of doors leading into empty rooms was beginning to make her feel a little creepy.
"It's only a bird, silly," said Edmund. "It's an owl," said Peter. "Oh, well spotted," said Edmund. "That's a bird!"
"That's a bird,
you
Peter!"
big knob!
"It's a bird." "No, it's an owl."
"It's an owl." Oh, right. Good insight, Peter.
Are so
Maybe you
far.
could be High King one day, picking that. "But this is going to be a wonderful place for birds. I shall go to bed now." And comes the royal pronouncement. "I shall go to bed."
Just
I
such on a
say.
tangent, though, is that this is going to be a wonderful place for birds.
He does have...
I'm going to bed now.
Yeah. He does have quite the regal voice, though. He said, "I shall go to bed now. I say."
You're making him sound a bit older than he is.
Hey, well, he is the oldest.
He's the oldest, but he's still a teenager.
"I say, let's go and explore tomorrow. You might find anything in a place like this. Did you see those mountains as we came along? And the woods? There might be eagles."
Or birds! Eagles or birds!
Or birds.
Both of them!
Oh! There might be stags. There'll be hawks. Again
Or
with the birds. Okay.
Is this part of his character that he likes birds a lot?
Maybe.
"Badgers," said Lucy.
"Foxes," said Edmund.
Rabbits, said Susan. Oh my God, Susan. No one cares, Susan.
Yeah, rabbits.
Rabbits.
Oh, well done, Susan.
You're going to hunt them, Susan.
Rabbits.
Hunt them with your bow and arrow.
Unless it's that white rabbit that goes for the jugular vein, we're not interested. But when next morning came, there was a steady rain falling, so thick that when you looked out of the window, you could see neither the mountains nor the woods, nor even the stream in the garden. Of course it would be raining.
What is that voice?
All of a sudden becoming Cockney.
And like 40 years old?
Well, he just wants to distinguish himself from Peter, you know. They just finished eating breakfast.
He's no longer like, 15, 14 years
Miraculously,
old? He's now like...
They grew up in the same... That's right, he's late 40s and he's smoked all his life and drunk 14 pints a day for the last 20 years. Of course it'll be raining. Of course it will be. They'd just finished their breakfast with the professor and were upstairs in the room he had set apart for them. A long, low room with 2 windows looking out in one direction and 2 in another.
Do stop grumbling, Ed, said Susan. 10 to 1, it'll clear up in an hour or so. And in the meantime, we're pretty well off. There's a wireless and lots of books. Wireless internet.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not getting very good reception here. Not for me, said Peter. I'm going to explore in the house.
How old is he? He's the oldest, but he's like, I'm going to explore.
He's going to explore. Another decree from Peter. He should say we. We are going to explore in the house. And we'll take the corgis. Everyone agreed to this.
No, everyone else is the has to play the corgis.
Yes, come on.
They have to crawl around.
Come on, corgis. We're going to explore now, what?
And they're like,
good
Peter,
show.
I don't want to play this game.
You have to be a corgi.
Corgis don't talk.
Right. What sort of world are you living in, Susan, where corgis talk? They don't. Everyone agreed to this. That just shows how stupid the rest of them are. And that was how the adventures began. It was the sort of house that you never seemed to come to the end of, and it was full of unexpected places. The first few doors they tried led only into spare bedrooms, as everyone had expected that they would. But soon they came to a very long room full of pictures, and there they found a suit of armour. And after that was a room all hung with green, with a harp in one corner, and then came 3 steps down, 5 steps up, 4 steps around, a hop, a skip, and then...
One spiral staircase.
That's right, and a
one
pirouette.
Up, one down.
Then a kind of little
Always
upstairs
twirling.
hall, and a door that led out onto the balcony. And then a whole series of rooms that led into each other and were lined with books, most of them very old books, and some bigger than a Bible in a church. And shortly after that, they looked into a room that was quite empty, except for one big wardrobe. The sort that has a looking glass in the door. There was nothing else in the room at all, except a dead blue bottle on the windowsill. Dead blue bottle? If you're from Australia, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It didn't miraculously fly from the ocean and land on a windowsill.
Don't touch it.
In countryside.
You'll still get stung.
Near London. Yeah, that's right. Don't step on it. Okay. Nothing there, said Peter, and they all trooped out again, all except Lucy. She stayed behind because she thought it would be worthwhile trying the door of the wardrobe, even though she felt almost sure that it would be locked. To her surprise, it opened quite easily, and 2 mothballs dropped out. And there she saw a giant moth. Dead.
Just opens the door and...
He's been castrated.
Looking into the inside, she saw several coats hanging up, mostly long fur coats. There was nothing Lucy liked so much as to smell and feel of fur. What?
The smell
and feel of fur.
Drapes herself in fur and blood.
And blood.
I like the blood
She doesn't make them into coats. It's just the dead animal.
Ripping animals apart.
Just the dead animal.
And hanging them over me.
She immediately stepped into the wardrobe and got in among the coats and rubbed her face against them.
As she normally does, smearing blood everywhere. Leaving the door open, of course.
Mm-hmm. Because she knew that it was very foolish to shut oneself in any wardrobe.
Yeah,
regular knowledge for anyone out there.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, don't get in a wardrobe.
My whole childhood, I knew never to shut myself in a wardrobe.
Yeah, but what if it's just like a built-in sliding door wardrobe.
Yeah.
Big deal.
There's no
Just
lock
open
on
the
that
door.
one.
Yeah.
But how is she getting in with the giant moth?
That's right. She's going, you let me in there and I'll give you your balls back. Get out! Get out or you're never getting these back.
She like chucks him out the window. She's like, go fetch!
Get your balls.
And he flies out. Gets stung by the blue bottle and dies.
Yeah, as he's getting out the window, steps on the blue bottle, dies.
Soon she went further in and found that there was a second row of coats hanging up behind the first one. It was almost quite dark in there, and she kept her arms stretched out in front of her so as to not bump her face into the back of the wardrobe. That would be really funny if she didn't. Boom. She took a step further in, then 2 or 3 steps, always expecting to feel woodwork against the tips of her fingers, but she could not feel it. This must be a simply enormous wardrobe, thought Lucy, going still further in and pushing the soft folds of the coat aside to make room for her. Then she noticed that there was something crunching under her feet. I wonder, is that more mothballs? There's more moths in this wardrobe.
Is there more moths in here? How big is
Get
this wardrobe?
She thought, stooping down to feel it with her hands. But instead of feeling the hard, smooth wood of the floor of the wardrobe, she felt something soft and powdery and extremely cold. This is very queer, she said, and went on a step or two further. This is quite gay.
This is gender queer.
This is gender queer.
This is gender
This
queer.
is very queer. I wonder if anyone reading it nowadays is just gonna
She said, and went on a
misunderstand.
step. That's right. This is very queer. This is non-gendered binary. Maybe.
Same thing. This is very LGBT.
Yeah, LGBTQIA2+.
2+.
Next moment, she found that what was rubbing against her face and hands was no longer soft fur, but something hard and rough and even prickly. Yeah, that was a bridge too far.
Why, it is just like branches of trees.
And then she saw that there was a light ahead of her, not a few inches away, where the back of the wardrobe ought to have been, but a long way off. Something cold and soft was falling on her. A moment later, she found that she was standing in the middle of a wood at night time, with snow under her feet and snowflakes falling through the air. Lucy felt a little frightened, but she felt very inquisitive and excited as well. These paragraphs are so long. Okay, she looked back over her shoulder
and on, but he doesn't want to give a little paragraph about the servants.
This is him. This is him. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can talk about this.
They don't come into the story much, so why would we put a paragraph in about
saying, yeah, if it's good enough for Tolkien, it's good enough for me.
Yep.
I'm going to spend 15 pages describing a mountain right now. Anyway. She looked back over her shoulder, and there between the dark tree trunks she could still see the open doorway of the wardrobe and even catch a glimpse of the empty room from which she had set out. She had, of course, left the door open, for she knew that it's a very silly thing to shut oneself into a wardrobe. Again with the wardrobe. Okay,
how many wardrobes has this man gotten locked into before he was like, I'm going to write a story about this?
Maybe that's the central thrust of this book as a message to kids. Don't lock yourself in a wardrobe.
It's not about any of the central themes.
No,
it is about wardrobe. Not locking yourself. Remember, children, do not lock yourselves in wardrobes.
Yes. It seemed to be still daylight there.
I can always get back if anything goes wrong.
She began to walk forward, crunch, crunch, over the snow and through the wood towards the other light. In about 10 minutes, she reached it and found it was a lamppost. As she stood looking at it, wondering why there was a lamppost in the middle of a wood and wondering what to do next, she heard a pitter-patter of feet coming towards her. And soon after that, a very strange person stepped out from among the trees into the light of the lamppost.
I don't feel very good about this, Dad.
No, that's a bad sign.
It's an omen.
He's very strange, and he stepped out from among the trees. Okay.
Towards a little girl.
Yeah. He was only a little taller than Lucy herself, and he carried over his head an umbrella, white with snow. From the waist upwards, he was like a man, but his legs were shaped like a Z.
A what?
A Z? I don't know.
Dad, it's like a goat.
The hair on them was glossy black. Instead of feet, he had goat hoofs. He also had a tail, but Lucy did not notice this at first because it was neatly caught up over the arm that held the umbrella so as to keep it from trailing in the snow. He had a red woolen muffler around his neck, and his skin was rather reddish too. He had a strange but pleasant little face with a short pointed beard and curly hair, and out of the hair there stuck 2 horns, one on each side of his forehead. Would look weird if there were 2 on the one side of his forehead.
Yeah, that's true.
I wish that was true. One of his hands, as I have said, he says lots of stuff twice. As I have said, held the umbrella.
As I have said,
we didn't know. Don't tell us again.
We didn't know you were talking to us directly,
That's right.
C.S. Lewis. This is the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Again. Well, if Tolkien can write a freaking long book, I'm going to add a little bit too. Anyway, held the umbrella. In the other arm, he carried several brown paper parcels. What with the parcels and the snow, it looked just as if he'd been...
We don't want to assume.
No, we don't want to assume his species.
No.
He'll be triggered.
That would be offensive.
That would be offensive. Oh, do you just assume that I'm a faun? Oops, I said it. What with the parcels and snow, it looked just as if he'd been doing his Christmas shopping. He was a faun, and when he saw Lucy, he gave such a start of surprise, he dropped all his parcels. Goodness gracious me, said the faun.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and your thoughts in the comments below. This is the first video of its kind, so I hope you guys really like it, and hopefully I get to make more. This is Fairchild. See you later.